Coffee is a beloved beverage known for its ability to fine-tune your focus and boost your energy levels. In fact, many people depend on their daily cup of coffee right when they wake up to get their day started on the right foot. In addition to its energizing effects, coffee has been linked to a long list of potential health benefits, giving you all the more reason to get brewing. 1. Boosts energy levels. Coffee contains caffeine, a central nervous system stimulant that is known for its ability to fight fatigue and increase energy levels. This is because caffeine blocks the receptors of a neurotransmitter called adenosine, and this increases levels of other neurotransmitters in your brain that regulate your energy levels, including dopamine. One small study found that consuming caffeine increased time to exhaustion during a cycling exercise by 12% and significantly reduced subjective levels of fatigue in participants. Another study had similar findings, reporting that consuming caffeine before and during a round of golf improved performance, increased subjective energy levels, and reduced feelings of fatigue. 2. May be linked to a lower risk of type 2 diabetes. Some research suggests that consuming coffee regularly could be associated with a decreased risk of developing type 2 diabetes over the long term. In fact, one review of 30 studies found that each cup of coffee people consume per day was linked to a 6% lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes. This is thought to be due to coffee's ability to preserve the function of the beta cells in your pancreas, which are responsible for producing insulin to regulate blood sugar levels. Plus, it's rich in antioxidants and may affect insulin sensitivity, inflammation, and metabolism, all of which are involved in the development of type 2 diabetes. 3. Could support brain health. Although studies have turned up mixed results, some research suggests that coffee may help protect against certain neurodegenerative disorders, including Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. According to one review of 13 studies, people who regularly consume caffeine had a significantly lower risk of developing Parkinson's disease. What's more, caffeine consumption also slowed the progression of Parkinson's disease over time. Another review of 11 observational studies in more than 29,000 people also found that the more coffee people consumed, the lower their risk of Alzheimer's disease. Additionally, several studies have demonstrated that moderate coffee consumption could be associated with a lower risk of dementia and cognitive decline. 4. May promote weight management. According to some research, coffee could alter fat storage and support gut health, both of which may be beneficial for weight management. For example, one review of 12 studies concluded that higher coffee consumption could be associated with decreased body fat, especially in men. In another study, increased coffee intake was linked to decreased body fat in women. Furthermore, one study found that people who drank 1 to 2 cups of coffee per day were 17% more likely to meet recommended physical activity. 5. Linked to a lower risk of depression. Some studies have found that drinking coffee could be associated with a lower risk of depression. According to one review of 7 studies, each cup of coffee people consumed per day was linked to an 8% lower risk of depression. Another study found that drinking at least 4 cups of coffee each day was associated with a significantly lower risk of depression, compared with drinking just 1 cup per day. What's more, one study in more than 200,000 people shows that drinking coffee was linked to a lower risk of death by suicide. 6. Could protect against liver conditions. Interestingly, several studies suggest that coffee could support liver health and protect against disease. For instance, one study found that drinking more than 2 cups of coffee per day was linked to lower rates of liver scarring and liver cancer in people with liver disease. Other research shows that the more coffee people drank, the lower their risk of death from chronic liver disease. Drinking 1 cup of coffee per day was tied to a 15% lower risk, while drinking 4 cups per day was linked to a 71% lower risk. Another recent study found that coffee consumption was associated with decreased liver stiffness, which is a measure healthcare professionals use to assess fibrosis, the formation of scar tissue in the liver. 7. Supports heart health. Some research shows that drinking coffee may benefit heart health. In fact, one review found that drinking 3 to 5 cups of coffee per day was tied to a 15% reduced risk of heart disease. Another review of 21 studies shows that drinking 3 to 4 cups of coffee daily was associated with a 21% lower risk of stroke. What's more, one study in more than 21,000 people also found that increased coffee intake was associated with a significantly decreased risk of heart failure. However, keep in mind that caffeine could affect blood pressure levels. Therefore, people with unmanaged blood pressure may need to limit or moderate their caffeine intake. 8. Could increase longevity. Some research suggests that coffee could help extend longevity, thanks to its multitude of potential health benefits. For example, one review of 40 studies concluded that drinking 2 to 4 cups of coffee daily was associated with a lower risk of death, regardless of factors like age, weight status, and alcohol consumption. Similarly, another study in 1,567 people found that drinking caffeinated coffee was linked to a lower risk of death after 12 and 18 years of follow-up. Furthermore, drinking at least 1 cup of coffee per day was also associated with a lower risk of death from cancer. Interestingly, one test tube study shows that coffee was able to significantly extend the lifespan of yeast by protecting against free radicals and DNA damage. However, more research is needed to determine whether this could also apply to humans. 9. May enhance athletic performance. Coffee is often used as an ergogenic aid by athletes looking to improve performance and increase energy levels. An ergogenic aid is also called a performance enhancer. One review of 9 studies reported that drinking coffee before exercise improved people's endurance and decreased their perceived exertion, compared with a control group. Another study in 126 older adults found that drinking coffee was associated with improved physical performance and faster gait speed, even after the researchers adjusted for factors like age, belly fat, and physical activity levels. Additionally, a large review reported that moderate caffeine consumption could slightly improve power output and time trial completion time. However, results varied, so the researchers also noted that caffeine may affect people differently. Now let's get to know about different types of coffee. We've all been there, standing in line at a favorite coffee shop, sweating because we're not entirely sure of the difference between a cold brew versus a classic iced coffee. Oh gosh, I know I have. Good news, we're covering everything from the difference of Arabica and Robusta coffee beans to all the ways to brew your favorite cup of joe. Hold on tight. Different types of coffee beans. In U.S. supermarkets, you'll typically find 2 types of coffee beans for sale, Arabica and Robusta. You may be wondering, is there a difference between Arabica and Robusta? Oh, there definitely is. Let's get right to it. Arabica. Arabica is the most popular type of coffee, hands down. Depending on who you ask, many coffee enthusiasts prefer using Arabica beans due to its taste. Typically used for black coffee, Arabica beans have a sweeter, more complex flavor that you can drink straight. Funny thing is, even though it's the most popular, it doesn't have as much caffeine as Robusta. Robusta. While Arabica is the most popular, Robusta is cheaper and stronger. Because of its bitter flavor, you'll typically see Robusta used for espresso drinks and in instant coffee mixes. If your Monday morning is lagging, reach for a cup of coffee that uses Robusta beans. Their high caffeine content will wake you right up. Types of coffee drinks. Latte, Americano, Affogato. It's crazy all that you can do with a few small beans. Whether you're a coffee newbie or you consider yourself a coffee connoisseur, there are so many types of coffee drinks to discover. Here are some of the most popular types ordered by coffee lovers nationwide. Black coffee. Black coffee is as simple as it gets with ground coffee beans steeped in hot water, served warm. And if you want to sound fancy, you can call black coffee by its proper name, café noir. Since it isn't doctored up with milk or sugar, the quality of coffee is especially important. Treat yourself to a coffee subscription box to find your favorite style. Latte. As the most popular coffee drink out there, the latte is comprised of a shot of espresso and steamed milk with just a touch of foam. It can be ordered plain or with a flavor shot of anything from vanilla to pumpkin spice. Here's how to make a copycat Starbucks pumpkin spice latte. Cappuccino. Cappuccino is a latte made with more foam than steamed milk, often with a sprinkle of cocoa powder or cinnamon on top. Sometimes you can find variations that use cream instead of milk or ones that throw in flavor shot, as well. Americano. With a similar flavor to black coffee, the Americano consists of an espresso shot diluted in hot water. Pro tip: if you're making your own, pour the espresso first, then add the hot water. Espresso. An espresso shot can be served solo or used as the foundation of most coffee drinks, like lattes and macchiatos. Doppio. A double shot of espresso, the doppio is perfect for putting extra pep in your step. Cortado. Like yin and yang, a cortado is the perfect balance of espresso and warm steamed milk. The milk is used to cut back on the espresso's acidity. Red eye. Named after those pesky midnight flights, a red eye can cure any tiresome morning. A full cup of hot coffee with an espresso shot mixed in, this will definitely get your heart racing. Galão. Originating in Portugal, this hot coffee drink is closely related to the latte and cappuccino. Only difference is it contains about twice as much foamed milk, making it a lighter drink compared to the other two. Lungo. A lungo is a long pull espresso. The longer the pull, the more caffeine there is and the more ounces you can enjoy. Macchiato. The macchiato is another espresso-based drink that has a small amount of foam on top. It's the happy medium between a cappuccino and a doppio. Mocha. For all you chocolate lovers out there, you'll fall in love with a mocha, or maybe you already have. The mocha is a chocolate espresso drink with steamed milk and foam. Ristretto. Ristretto is an espresso shot. It uses less hot water, which creates a sweeter flavor compared to the bitter taste of a traditional shot of espresso or a doppio. Flat white. This Aussie-born drink is basically a cappuccino without the foam or chocolate sprinkle. It's an espresso drink with steamed milk. Affogato. The affogato is an excuse to enjoy a scoop of ice cream any time of day, and any time of year in my opinion. Served with a scoop of ice cream and a shot of espresso, or two. The affogato is extra delicious served over a brownie. Café au lait. Café au lait is perfect for the coffee minimalist who wants a bit more flavor. Just add a splash of warm milk to your coffee and you're all set. Irish. Irish coffee consists of black coffee, whiskey and sugar, topped with whipped cream. Here's an Irish coffee recipe that will warm you right up. Types of iced coffee. What's more refreshing than cool iced coffee in the summertime? Or maybe you enjoy these chilled drinks all year long. Here are some of the best iced coffee drinks you can sip on. Iced coffee. A coffee with ice, typically served with a dash of milk, cream or sweetener. Iced coffee is really as simple as that. Iced espresso. Like an iced coffee, iced espresso can be served straight or with a dash of milk, cream or sweetener. You can also ice specialty espresso-based drinks like Americanos, mochas, macchiatos, lattes and flat whites. Cold brew. The trendiest of the iced coffee bunch, cold brew coffees are made by steeping coffee beans from anywhere between 6 hours, depending on how strong you would like your cold brew. Once the beans are done steeping, add cold milk or cream. Here are a few of our best cold brew coffee tips. Frappuccino. Made famous by Starbucks, the Frappuccino is a blended iced coffee drink that's topped with whipped cream and syrup. But not all fraps are made the same, watch out for coffee-free versions. Unless you're into that sort of thing. Nitro. A cold brew plus nitrogen bubbles equals a cold brew coffee with a frothy, Guinness-like consistency. It's poured via a nitro tap, too. Mazagran. Mazahu? Mazagran coffee is a cross between iced coffee, tea and your favorite rum drink. It typically consists of espresso, lemon, sugar and, sometimes, rum. But the question is, where did coffee originate and how was it discovered? The history of coffee is a fascinating story. The bean has traveled the globe for centuries, being smuggled out of strict countries, stolen from royalty, and has changed entire nations and economies. It's remarkable how one small bean taken from tiny trees in Ethiopia could become the second largest commodity traded in the world today. Ever wondered where coffee came from, where this little bean got its start? Get ready to be taken on a journey through time and across continents. The history of coffee begins in the 15th century, when it was first exported out of Ethiopia to Yemen by Somali merchants. Sufi monasteries in Yemen employed the beverage as an aid to concentration during prayers. It soon spread to Mecca and Medina. By the early 16th century, it had reached the rest of the Middle East, South India, Karnataka, Persia, Turkey, India, and Northern Africa. Coffee then spread to the Balkans, Italy, and to the rest of Europe, as well as Southeast Asia. Numerous legends place the beginning of coffee's history at much earlier dates. According to one legend, ancestors of today's Kafficho people in the kingdom of Kaffa were the first to recognize the energizing effect of the coffee plant. However, no direct evidence that has been found earlier than the 15th century, or even where coffee was first cultivated. The story of Kaldi, the 9th century Ethiopian goat herd who discovered the stimulating effect of coffee when he noticed how excited his goats became after eating the beans from a coffee plant. They were dancing. This definitely wasn't normal. He discovered that they were eating red berries and concluded that this fruit was the cause of this odd behavior. After stumbling upon this magic fruit, he shared his findings with a monk, who was ecstatic to find something that would help him stay awake all night as he prayed. Across the waters, on to the Middle East. Though the story of Kaldi cannot be proven to be true, one thing is certain: coffee came from Ethiopia. Another thing we know for sure is where it went next. Coffee made its way north, across the Red Sea into Yemen in the 15th century. Due to coffee's growing popularity and the shipment of coffee from the port city, mocha became synonymous with coffee. Into Europe and Asia. The course of history changes when the coffee bean spreads both east and west, east into India and Indonesia and west into Italy and onto the rest of Europe. Arabia was the gatekeeper for coffee. If a country wanted coffee beans, they purchased it from Yemen. The authorities liked it that way and did everything to ensure that nobody could take fertile beans out of their control and plant the trees themselves. Alas, along comes Baba Budan, a Sufi saint from India who was on a pilgrimage to Mecca in 1670. Upon his return, Baba Budan smuggled some fertile beans back to India where he began coffee cultivation. These beans began a large-scale coffee farming in southern India which are still producing plants today. In the late 1600s, the Dutch finally started growing coffee. Decades earlier, the Dutch had smuggled coffee plants from Yemen in an attempt to grow the beans in Holland, but due to the cold weather their cultivation scheme failed miserably. Into the west, coffee invades Europe. Coffee finally arrived in Venice in 1570 and quickly became quite popular. In 1615, Pope Clement VIII decided that the drink must be satanic. Upon inspection, however, he gave in to the glory of the beverage, baptized it and declared it a Christian beverage. As the 1600s rolled on, coffee houses sprung up all over Europe in England, Austria, France, Germany, and Holland. Much like the coffee houses of Arabia, these places became social hubs where one could engage in stimulating conversation and political debates. In England, these became known as penny universities. For the price of a cup of coffee you could learn all sorts of things as public conversations carried on. Many of these coffee houses even grew into businesses, such as Edward Lloyd's Coffee House, which became a large-scale insurance company. In Oxford, England's first coffee club opened. This shop would later be known as the Oxford Coffee Club, where ideas and innovation were born and shared. The Oxford Coffee Club eventually grew to become the Royal Society. Coffee houses became the go-to place for Englishmen. If they weren't working or at the pub, they were at the coffee houses. Women at the time were furious as their husbands were never home anymore, always drinking coffee and engaging in religious and political discussions. Coffee introduced to the Americas. Coffee's final frontier, the Americas. Having already conquered Africa and the Indian Ocean nations and sweeping over Europe, the little beans were about to make their way even further west to conquer every nation touching the Atlantic Ocean. Crossing the Atlantic. In the early 18th century, the Dutch decided to extend their generosity in a way that would change the coffee farming world forever. The mayor of Amsterdam gifted King Louis XIV of France a young coffee plant in 1714. Although the Dutch could not cultivate coffee trees in Holland, they could keep them alive in special greenhouses. This plant was protected in the Royal Botanical Gardens of Paris. A captain of the French Navy, Gabriel Mathieu Ducal, was stationed in Martinique but happened to be visiting Paris. It's unclear whether he ended up stealing clippings from King Louis's coffee tree or if King Louis himself gave order for Ducal to establish a coffee plantation in Martinique. Regardless, Ducal took his clippings and set sail for the Caribbean, which happened to have the ideal coffee growing conditions. It was a long journey and Ducal struggled to keep his plant alive. Water was scarce on the boat, but he managed to keep the plant alive by giving it his own supply of water and often going thirsty himself. Upon arriving on the island, he secretly planted it among other plants to keep it safe. Within 3 years, coffee plantations spread throughout Martinique, Saint Dominique, and Guadeloupe. These would be the plants that would eventually populate the rest of the Caribbean and Central and South A. There are brands you and I might not know at all about but have excellent product quality and ethical business models. Many of us share an intimate attachment with coffee, and there are plenty of options for us to pick from. Some of us prefer the one that is right in front of us, and it is convenient as well. But some people like to put in the effort to research and find the best options. While buying coffee, people generally have 3 qualifiers: price, taste, and the third one, which mostly affects our consumer choices on a subconscious level, is the popularity of the brands. Now, popularity differs for each brand. Some brands can be intrinsically bad in their business practices, but because of clever marketing, they're the ones consumers buy the most from. Then, there are brands you and I might not know at all about but have excellent product quality and ethical business models. We have picked the top 10 coffee brands around the world that have been around for a while that you might be familiar with. 1. Starbucks. Everyone knows about Starbucks, thanks to their aggressive marketing and shrewd advertising techniques. But, does everyone like Starbucks coffee? The answer differs. The brand is not known for sourcing and roasting the best coffee beans. Most of their coffee beans are dark roasted, meaning, they taste bitter. And many consumers, who know their coffee, complain that Starbucks coffee has a distinct burnt taste. But that is okay with the company. The company knows what the average consumers like: caffeine. And, their coffees contain a high amount of caffeine. And, Starbucks keeps coming up with blended and modified versions of their coffee. Thanks to regular tasting panels, the company knows just how much tweaking it takes to target the average consumers. Plus, Starbucks gives you a lot of options to choose from. And according to its official sources, it does offer gourmet coffees, but that might not be the one you get from them daily. Besides, the company is trying to be more eco-friendly. They are introducing more plant-based meal options, shifting away from single-use cups, and trying to manage their wastage better, and let's hope that's the beginning of something extraordinary. 2. Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' is not as big a brand as Starbucks, but they are second in line in the number of stores. But yes, the coffee Dunkin' offers is surely somewhat superior to Starbucks. For instance, Dunkin' does not have the signature burnt taste in coffee as Starbucks does. The coffee is also cheaper. The key difference between the two companies is that Dunkin' is more of a traditional eatery while Starbucks is a premium coffee house with greater scope to customize and choose from an extensive menu. The cool thing about Dunkin', though, is that you get free donuts sometimes. 3. Costa Coffee. Costa Coffee is one of the largest coffee chains in Britain. Having its presence in more than 31 countries worldwide, It has more than 3,000 outlets serving coffee with around 18,000 branches in the whole world. Costa coffees are medium roasted, which makes them smoother, sweeter, and nuttier. 4. Mcafe. Owned by McDonald's, Mcafe is one of the leading coffee chains in countries like Australia and New Zealand. Mcafe enjoys the benefit of having a vast presence, because let's face it, McDonald's is everywhere. As McDonald's expands worldwide, there is a decent chance of Mcafe doing the same. The coffee here, however, is freshly brewed every 30 minutes, so it is never stale. And although it is medium roasted, it has a bitter taste although has flavors options to add with the coffee. You see, the lighter roasted coffee is, the more flavorful it tends to get. So, when having a coffee at Mcafe, prepare to get the nutty aftertaste. Besides, the coffees are cheap. 5. Peet's Coffee. Peet's Coffee is said to be fairly stronger than the coffee Starbucks serves, so it might not be for everyone. Peet's has a long history of serving dark or roasted Arabica coffee. The coffee supposedly has a variety of flavors. If you are someone who cannot stand the burnt taste in coffee, maybe you will like Peet's. Also, the store layout is traditional and the brand maintains a good relationship with its supply chain. 6. Nescafe. If there is another coffee everyone has heard of, it is Nescafe. It's present almost anywhere in the globe. The instant coffee by Nescafe is unbeatable, not so much by taste as it is for availability. As for the taste, it sure is not the best instant coffee. Plus, the immediate rejuvenating feeling you get after a cup of Nescafe tends to wear off within an hour or two. One of the main reasons Nescafe is so popular is because of its host company Nestlé. Nestlé used its deep pockets and smart marketing to get Nescafe everywhere around the world. Distribution support matters in the coffee world. 7. Brew Coffee. Originated in India, Brew is perhaps one of the largest competitors of Nescafe in South Asia. Brew is not all coffee though, it is a graceful mix of coffee and chicory. With the authentic taste and regular launching of newer instant coffee options, Brew deserves to be on our list of top 10. 8. Gloria Jeans Coffees. Gloria Jeans has definitely a more prominent presence within Australia with more than 450 outlets. But, that does not mean it's doing badly globally either. It has around 1,000 stores worldwide and Bangladesh is one of them. About the coffee, it has got fairly good quality coffee but nothing that you would remember for a long time. 9. Tim Hortons. Being one of the oldest coffee brands, Tim Hortons cafes have more of a traditional setting. It is a fast food chain with less customizable coffee options. And that is exactly why so many people adore the place. If you are someone who prefers their coffee with simple sugar and cream, you might love what Tim Hortons has to offer. And, they have donuts. 10. Folgers. Folgers is one of the most iconic coffee brands in the United States. The brand is well known for their ground coffee and is thought to have revolutionized the idea of it as well. The coffee is not extraordinary in its taste, maybe mediocre at best. But, if brewed properly, you can get a modest cup of coffee. Besides, if you cannot afford anything better, Folgers is not bad at all. But wait, there's more. So, there it was, the list. Now, let's talk about the more sustainable options. Do you know what makes a brand great? Is it just the popularity or what the brand really stands for? Most of the successful brands, unfortunately, care too little about the workers, the farmers, or about fair and minimum wage. Some of them could not care less about the environment, the planet, and all of its inhabitants. But the good news is, some brands are just the contrary. They are sustainable, innovative, and will blow your mind. Larry's Coffee. Larry's is one of the really unique brands out there. Their shade-grown, organic coffee is delicious and does not lack flavors. If there is something that outstands, that is how they conduct business. With the solar water-heated floors, rainwater-driven restrooms, natural day lighting, zone heating, composting, rainwater harvesting, edible gardens at their roastery, and much more, they are one of the best sustainable, fair trade coffee brands out there. And, affordable as well. They also serve their coffee in fully recyclable BPA-free cups. Cafe Mam. A shade-grown, authentic coffee brand that gives back to their community. Their coffee is certified organic and they also have decaffeinated options for you to choose from. Their coffee comes in recyclable and compostable packaging and the brand cares deeply about a sustainable future. Ethical Bean. Do you ever wonder where your coffee comes from? With Ethical Bean, you can literally trace your coffee and learn all about it. The coffee the brand offers is seasonally sourced and tastes great. They also have a fair trade business model and the cost of production is covered during payment. And, there are plenty more to name: Equal Exchange, Salt Spring, Conscious Coffees, Grumpy Mule, Cafe Direct. These are one of the few sustainable brands out there that care more than just profit. We hope you enjoyed the list and now perhaps it is time to go learn more about coffee. You do not really